Now let's talk about general machinery space inspections. The safety precautions we need to be ready for, aside from your general PPE that we're going to have on, is we want to be sure we're good to go on hearing protection, gloves if you need them, and be current on your training for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Can get quite hot in engine rooms sometimes, so you want to be prepared for that. Okay, let's talk about the general condition of the machinery space and all the related equipment in it. Today we're in an engine room on a vessel that's been laid up for quite a long time and has quite a bit of work to do before they are ready for Coast Guard inspection. So, one of the things you want to pay attention to is the overall cleanliness and squared away aspect of a machinery space. One of the sayings that I've always been fond of is a clean engine room is a happy engine room, and most importantly is a safe engine room. We reduce the fire risk. As we pan around this engine room, we can see things like deck plates that are not in place, dangerous places where you may step. There is equipment and loose gear laying around all over the place, tools laying out. But as I say, this is an engine room that's been laid up for a while. This is surely, you wouldn't expect to see this on an engine room that's ready to go to sea. We have cleaning gear leaning up and around places, ventilation fans. The machinery probably needs to be run and made sure that there are no leaks. One important thing that's related to fire safety is ensuring that the bilges are free of oil and don't present an ignition risk that way. And I don't see any standing water or pockets of oil. As a matter of fact, we could go to the main build suction point, which is probably one of the lowest points of the bilge, and we do see that this is where we're starting to see some accumulation of water with a little bit of oil on top of it. Prior to Coast Guard inspection, we're definitely going to want to have that cleaned up. We see another bilge well, suction well, and you see this bilge suction pipe, there's no screen around it like we saw on the other one, and you see this rag laying here. I think you could see how easy, if this thing was full of water and we began to take suction, that rag may clog it up. Generally in these situations, you might find a screen that would lay over and cover the whole hole all the way to keep the rags from getting to the point down below. Here is the junction box for the wire that comes down, and there is a float build switch very close and in conjunction with this well pocket. Some of the fire risks that you might need to be worried about, besides the oil accumulating in the bilges, may be oily rags or other such things that may be adjacent to heated surfaces to create Class A fires. We definitely want to run all the internal combustion engines in here to ensure that the fuel and oil piping systems are leak-free. Make sure all the engines are not leaking and presenting a fire hazard that way. Many times we'll come across belt-driven machinery where the motor will, through an electric belt, turn a compressor or a pump. Those belts are very dangerous, so you have to make sure the belts have a mechanical guard around it. Be careful of railings in large engine rooms. If it's a railing intended for you to put your hand on or maybe even lean against, make sure of the condition of it, that it's not rusted and breaks through. Another thing that could also prevent a fire hazard is looking up. It's generally where the electric cables are, but it's also a lot of times where in a ventilated engine room all the dust and the oil grit accumulate. So you can imagine arcs and sparks in the same place as a lot of dust and oily grit. So it's hard work, but sometimes you got to get up there and make sure everything's cleaned in the overhead. The lagging of exhaust piping and ports is also important. It's an important fire prevention aspect as well. So one of the most difficult decisions you'll have to make as a marine inspector is how to exercise your authority as it relates to the fire risk presented by a machinery space based on its level of cleanliness or lack thereof, or the accumulation of oils and fuels around. I recommend that you have these discussions with the more experienced verifying officers at your unit to make sure that you are in line with exercising the captain of the port's authority with the way that is best for your CO and the way your unit does things. There's any myriad of different conditions and situations that involve the level of cleanliness and fire risk of a machinery space. So there is no one answer and one size fits all requirement that could be written. All the risks and situations must be taken into account. Again, have these discussions with your verifying officers. So, to summarize inspecting machinery spaces, we covered the hazards you may encounter. We covered inspecting the general condition of the machinery and all the related equipment. We spoke about evaluating the fire risk in the space and the bilges, and the means to control the leaks of flammable liquids with containments. We evaluated the bilge wells for cleanliness and presence of screens. We talked about the personnel hazards you may encounter and all the rotating machinery guards you have to verify. And lastly, we spoke about the overall condition of an engine room and evaluating it to determine what actions you may take. And as always, please speak to the verifying officers at your unit when it comes to machinery room inspections. There should be long conversations with them. Thanks.